haven't seen official numbers, but I'm going to guess that it climbed way above that, because when you looked out of Fiserv Forum out over the Deer District, there wasn't a speck of land to be seen. Like, there were people everywhere. And, of course, you've got 16,000 plus in the arena. I was in the arena. I can tell you it was packed to the seams. All right, so every single standing room only spot, every single seat, every single suite spot, and maybe even then some. Like, this place was jammed, as it should be for a team that has been on this long, long journey. As you guys know, 50 years since their last NBA title. This is the very first Larry O'Brien trophy in Milwaukee, so it was richly deserved for all those people who trekked their way down to downtown Milwaukee to the Deer District to take part in what was a raucous and deserved celebration.
Giannis was already an urban legend, but where does this place him amongst the Bucks greats? When you think about the Big O, you think about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, think about Sidney Moncrief. Where does this put him? Do they start sculpting the statue outside right now of the block or the
yeah,
oop?
Absolutely, Bart. I mean, they do. They just do. And guys, it's crazy to think that he is just 26 years old. Like, that's astounding to me, because it feels like he's been in the league for a really long time. And, oh, yeah, he has, because he started when he was so young. So, like, he's got so much more time to continue adding to this resume and building this legacy. And there was a list yesterday that I saw rolling around on SportsCenter and on social media of, like, guys who had won multiple MVPs and finals MVPs. And the list was so short, it was only 9 guys. Right? And you talk about the titans of the NBA in Michael Jordan, Kareem, Larry Bird, and right there at the bottom of the list, the most recent addition is Giannis Antetokounmpo, right? So, like, the sky is the limit for this guy. And I know, Bart, I heard you driving in, and I know you and I have chatted sitting next to each other on an airplane about a month ago about the limitations on Giannis's game. Enough of that. Enough of that. There's more than one way to be a champion. And I love that people are starting to embrace what Giannis is, and that, more importantly, Giannis is embracing what he is and who he is, instead of trying to be something he isn't right now. I am all for evolving your game, adding a little trick here and there as you continue on your journey. But it finally seemed like as the playoffs went on, he was like, I'm going inside, downhill, try to stop me. And it worked for the Bucks with a big 50 burger last night.
If you can't tell, Jen Latta's waking up in Milwaukee. This is Jen Latta of ESPN Milwaukee. She's the host of Jen, Gabe, and Chewy, 7 to 9 a.m. Central. I know, right? She's like living it. I love the enthusiasm in her voice. We needed you, Jen, this morning. Like, we were already hyped, but we needed a little bit of you. Okay, so now let's move to Coach Bud, because the criticism was loud and it was forceful. It felt like throughout the entirety of these playoffs. And then last night happened, and it felt like, you know, those who maybe were very critical of Coach Bud had to take a step back and kind of shut their mouth a little bit. So is it finally time to give Coach Bud the credit that he deserves?
Yeah, probably all the flowers, certainly some respect, and certainly his due, because the biggest criticism of Bud was what, guys? That he didn't make adjustments. He was one of those stubborn coaches who said, well, what I've been doing has always worked, so why would I deviate from that plan? But then you saw there were times where it didn't work, and his team was getting, crushed. It's crazy to think of some of the moments in this playoff run. Do we even talk about Giannis's knee going flamingo on him? Do we even talk about that right now? Like, it is crazy. But to get back to Bud, the adjustments that he made throughout this series and throughout the playoff run, you've got to give him credit for that, right? He put guys in positions to succeed. There have been times where guys weren't coming through, weren't playing their best offense, weren't hitting shots, right? Drew Holiday comes to mind. But Drew Holiday's defense was coming through. And I think that you look at all of those things and the way that he put guys in positions to succeed, even when they may not have been having their best games, and you have to give him credit for making those adjustments, for tweaking his character, right? The way that he was hardwired, that absolutely deserves all the credit and all the respect.
So one win equals a ring for Aaron Rodgers, who's a minority owner. But will he be there competing for 2? Do you guys expect him to show up, and do you expect the Packers to figure it out?
What are you doing to me, Bart?
I was like, did we lose Jen on that question? What happened?
Well, I mean, I thought that we were friends.
Too soon?
And
too early?
Now I'm starting to think that maybe I was overestimating our relationship. Yeah, we obviously will continue talking about Aaron Rodgers. Packers training camp just about a week away. And we don't know. We obviously saw the report from Adam Schefter yesterday. We had obviously heard rumblings of that leading up to the report yesterday as well, about them offering him a contract and giving him all of the money and how it wasn't about the money. What we can't figure out here in Milwaukee, and I think this extends through the fan base and even nationally, is what does he want? If it isn't about the money, and it isn't about the security, right? Because that was the other thing. He didn't want to be a lame duck quarterback. All right, so they say, we'll push all of our chips to the middle of the table on you, Aaron Rodgers, and security for 5 years. And he doesn't want that either. So is it all about control, or does he just want out, guys? And if he just wants out, I have a very hard time seeing how he wins this one, because it is not in the Packers' best interest to trade him. Certainly not right now. Their best haul would have been on draft night. They didn't do that. They're probably kicking themselves for that because they didn't think this thing would go as nuclear as it's gone. And now you got to try to get the best, deal back for him. I heard about the speculation. There's people who are saying, oh, why don't they sign a 1-year deal? And at the end of the 1 year, you shake hands, you go your separate ways, and he can go off into the sunset and play for whomever. Why in the world would you do that with an asset? Why in the world, if you're running a business, do you just let something valuable go for free? So it blows the mind. It baffles the mind. It'll be so interesting to see how this plays out, because you're dealing with stubbornness, you're dealing with ego, and you're dealing with two sides that still refuse to blink.
Okay, talking to Jen Latta really quick before we let you go, and I'll let you have your celebration this morning, Jen. I do want to ask you to kind of take a guess here with Rodgers. Does he show up to training camp next week at all, the following week? Obviously, I know you're not in his head and you can't predict the future, but if you had to guess, knowing what you know about Aaron Rodgers and this organization so well, what would you assume?
I have always been in the camp of he's not showing up. And that simply goes back to having covered the guy for as long as I have, and him being supremely stubborn, with that legendary chip on his shoulder. I don't see how he convinces himself that going back is a win for him, that he can put a tally mark in the win column, unless he says, I got to do it for my guys. I got to do it for Devontae Adams. I got to do it for Aaron Jones. I got to do it for David Bakhtiari. I got to do it for all these guys, Mercedes Lewis, that I have relationships with, who deserve another shot at the title, who deserve another shot at hoisting the Lombardi, much like the Bucs are hoisting the Larry O'Brien here. And look, hey, there's something to be said for that. You watched the Bucs celebrating last night on the floor of Fiserv Forum, and you're a competitor, and you think you have a team that's close to winning. Don't tell me that doesn't motivate you a little bit. Don't tell me that you don't go, we could do that. Man, if we could just figure some stuff out, we could get there. Like, maybe that's the tipping point, right? I mean, who knows with this guy? But right now, I'm still of the belief that he doesn't show up to camp next week. After that, it's a crapshoot.
Okay.
Does he show up for the parade as a minority owner?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Nah, I don't think so, man. If he didn't show up to Game 6 in Milwaukee, where they had a chance to win the whole thing as a minority owner, I don't think he's taking the shine off these guys. Yeah. Because that would be a huge, 1A, 1B storyline for the parade. And I think he wants these guys to get the respect they're due, the accolades that they're due, and not take any of that shine away.
Good point. All right, Jen Latta, host of ESPN Milwaukee. Thank you so much for the time. We really appreciate the insight. Go enjoy this great morning in Milwaukee and celebrate that Bucs win.
Bucks in 6, guys. The prophecy has been fulfilled.
It really has. See you, Jen. I should have known better. Like when I welcome her, I'm like, "Good morning, Jen." And she's like, "Good morning. It's a great morning." I'm like, "You're right. I didn't set that up properly. That was my bad." But now I know it is a good morning in Milwaukee. But like even the way we were asking questions, right? We started with Bucks, finished with Rodgers. Like she's right. He's not showing up to the parade. He didn't even show up to the game last night.
I don't know. He's maniacal like that. You know what I mean? He might just show up.
Like the draft night.
Right. See, but he knows if he does that, he probably has to go have a conversation, to be seen walking to the Green Bay Packers facility to have a conversation about what his wishes are, maybe negotiate a little bit, and then he can leave. So then that's a great excuse to be there, enjoy the parade, go talk to the team. I'm not coming. I don't want this. I'm out.
Well, no, he would go to the parade first.
Go to the parade first.
And then go to Lambeau and have
he have a meeting. He has a meeting, right? Because
they've already flown out to California to have meetings with him. He ain't going there to have a meeting.
You got to check on his house.
Does he? Don't you have people for that? And when you get to your guys,
I don't got no discount, double check, paycheck. I ain't never made no Rodgers money.
This is the same guy who I asked him about his social media, and he told me he has people running it for him. So I just want to point that out.
That's because I don't know how to send an email. Still working on it.
You work in media, we don't know how to send an email. Well, yeah, we got to work. It's just a quick click of a send button. Pretty simple. All right, Giannis has figured it out, in my opinion. He has done what I've been preaching these athletes to be doing, and he's finally found a way to do it. Does he get the respect for it, though? That is the question. We'll figure it out next. This is Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin.